Operation Paul Bunyan, Tree versus Tanks. In 1976, the world came this close to seeing World War III start. Over a tree. Yes, a tree. Not oil. Not nuclear weapons. Not even bad karaoke. A tree. This was not just any tree. It was a poplar tree in the Korean Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, between North and South Korea. It was tall, leafy, and in the wrong place at the wrong time. Became the root cause of one of the most bizarre military standoffs in history. Picture this. The DMZ is one of the most heavily guarded borders in the world. Armed soldiers, barbed wire, landmines, and in the middle of it all, this one poplar tree, casually growing like it owns the place. The problem? This tree blocked the line of sight between a United Nations command checkpoint and a South Korean checkpoint. That meant soldiers couldn't see each other clearly. And in a tense place like the DMZ, that's basically like driving blindfolded on the highway. So, on August 18, 1976, U.S. Army officers Captain Arthur Boniface and First Lieutenant Mark Barrett, along with a work party of South Korean soldiers, went to trim the tree. Seems simple, right? Well, North Korean soldiers did not think so. They showed up, led by Senior Lieutenant Pak Chul, known by U.S. troops as the Bulldog, because he loved confrontation. The incident. As the crew worked, about 15 North Korean soldiers arrived, led by Senior Lieutenant Pak Chul. Pak wasn't exactly the friendly type. U.S. soldiers called him the Bulldog because he loved confrontation. Pause. He ordered them to stop. They refused. Then, without warning, the North Korean soldiers attacked, using the very axes meant for trimming branches. The fight was brutal. In the chaos, Captain Boniface was beaten to death, and Lieutenant Barrett was killed while trying to escape. The DMZ had always been tense, but this was something different. 2 U.S. officers dead, over a tree. Now Washington had a decision to make. Ignore it and look weak, or respond and risk a full war. Enter Operation Paul Bunyan. The U.S. response? An operation so over-the-top, so theatrical, that it feels like it was scripted for an action movie. They called it Operation Paul Bunyan, named after America's legendary giant lumberjack. Because if you're going to chop down a tree, you may as well do it in style. The plan. Here's the plan. Cut down the tree. Simple, right? Except, they weren't going to do it quietly. Oh no. They were going to do it with overwhelming force. Enough to send a crystal-clear message. We will chop down this tree, and if you try to stop us, we'll chop down your entire army too. The show of force. On August 21st, 1976, just 3 days after the incident, the operation began. At 7 a.m., a convoy of 23 vehicles rolled up to the tree. The crew included 16 engineers with chainsaws, 64 South Korean soldiers with clubs and axes, 30 American troops with M16 rifles, grenade launchers, and sidearms. And that's just the tree-cutting team. Hovering overhead were B-52 bombers armed with nuclear weapons, escorted by F-4 Phantom fighter jets. On the ground, artillery batteries were primed. Helicopters patrolled the skies. Even an aircraft carrier battle group was on alert. This wasn't just a tree-cutting job. This was the biggest, angriest landscaping crew in human history. The standoff North Korean soldiers stood nearby, watching. They were heavily armed, but they didn't make a move. Pause. Can you imagine being one of them? Commander, the Americans brought bombers, tanks, and chainsaws for a tree. In less than 45 minutes, the poplar tree, once the center of so much tension, was gone. All that was left was a 2-meter stump. And just to rub it in, the U.S. left the stump as a reminder. A monument, if you will, to say, "Don't mess with our gardening." Aftermath. The message was received. Just a few days later, North Korea, which never apologizes, expressed regret over the killings. It was rare, almost unheard of. But the show of force worked. Operation Paul Bunyan has since gone down as one of the most bizarre, yet effective, military operations in modern history. A moment where the world teetered on the edge of war, and somehow cooler heads prevailed. So the next time you're annoyed by your neighbor's overgrown hedge or tree branch creeping into your yard, just remember, somewhere out there is a tree that almost started World War III, and that is the story of Operation Paul Bunyan.